Sup everyone, Darkscream217 here, and with me is a special guest, Windsor321.
Yo,
And today we're gonna do another Tokusatsu talk vlog. Recently the Kamen Rider cross Super Sentai superhero Taisen, was it? Yeah, recently
yes.
that movie came out this year, and Windsor suggested that as a video I could make, I could talk about that movie, but I haven't seen it yet. And to be honest, I actually haven't seen most of the Super Sentai or finished most of them, especially Go Kaiser, which I'm still in the middle of. But he said that the movie was disappointing. We found it on JE Fusion, and we decided to sit down and watch it together. And I could see why people would be royally disappointed. It was a pretty overhyped film. Then again, it was hard not to overhype it. It's all of Kamen Rider meets every single Super Sentai ever. Of course, people are going to get overly excited. But for me, I thought the movie was it was disappointing, but I went there with low expectations because of this, and because of that, I wasn't royally offended like almost everyone else is. Um, where do you think we should start with?
Well, why don't we just start from the intro?
Okay, one of the biggest cons is at the beginning of the film, we see like seven Showa era riders, Kamen Riders 1 through Z Cross, I think, fighting Captain Marvelous, aka Gokai Red, and they all just job out instantly.
There was like no fight at all. They all pretty much got knocked out at the same time.
Yeah, like, he eliminated Kamen Riders 1 and 2, and every time a Sentai or Kamen Rider dies, they, like, get engulfed in purple flames. And he eliminates the rest of them as Kaku Ranger or Kaku Red. That's a ninja Sentai, and there it was like a 1 minute fight scene, and so that's one problem. Most of the fights were like very short and not satisfying at all. But the second thing that bugs me more is the story and character motivations, which I listed here. Almost everyone in this film, or at least the main two characters who are being focused, Captain Marvelous and Tsukasa, they were acting like real gigantic assholes. Granted, they're not really goody two shoes to begin with, but holy shit. See, each one is trying to kill off members of the opposing force. Tsukasa, as Kamen Rider Decade, is trying to eliminate all the Super Sentai, and Captain Marvelous, as Gokai Red of the Kaizo Sentai Gokaiger, is trying to eliminate all the Kamen Riders. Because Riders and Super Sentai can't coexist. Why can't they coexist?
Because
Be-
double reach around.
exactly. Because even though they existed in the same time slot together,
They can't share a time slot. One must own the entire hour.
so Captain Marvelous is siding with the major villains from his TV show, the Zangiak Empire, which is now known as Daizangiak, while Tsukasa is teaming up with major Kamen Rider villains and forming Daishocker again. That part kind of bugs me because I can't just picture those two siding with over the top villains like that.
It would have been more interesting if they sided with their opposites.
What do you mean?
Like, think about it. What if Gokai Red was the captain of Die Shocker, and Decade was
That would also
the
be kind of confusing, but that would be slightly better. However, not to worry, there's actually something else I'm going to mention in regards to a few plot twists. But and so we get some crazy action sequences where we get a Kamen Rider Forze fighting off Gokai Red and Daizangiak, only to have Meteor Storm eliminate in the middle of this. And then the next scene is basically almost the same thing except with the Go Busters. Now, another thing that could be either a pro or con to you, depending on your perspective, is that I've seen some of the advertising for the posters, and it was painted out that Forza and Go Busters would be the central focus of this series or this film. They're not. The characters who get focused most are Joe and Don, who are respectively Gokai's blue and green. Hina, who's from Kamen Rider O's. I don't know much about her since I've never seen that show. And Kaito from Kamen Rider Decade, who's also known as Kamen Rider The End. Those are basically the protagonists in the film for a while.
Okay, should we also bring up the game since we're talking about
The
this?
game?
Since, yeah, the game, since we already brought up Kaito.
Okay, bring up the game.
Every time Kaito acts Tsundere towards
Oh,
Decade, take a shot.
there was something that there was on the forums. You want? I'll post a link. It's called the Superhero Tyson drinking game, and they have some moments where they point out some things where you can take a drink to. I do not recommend this because you might be dead. But yeah, one of the things is anytime Deanne acts Sundari towards Decade, take a shot. There was some awkward bromance between those two characters. It was kind of uncomfortable to watch. And he
And
was acting like a Sundari for some reason.
and before we start continuing on with him, we need to get to the part where he and Joe team up.
Oh, yeah, he and Joe team up. Like, what part you mentioned? Like, early in the film?
Like okay, it's let's see, we're on right after Meteor was destroyed and Force gets smacked around. Then they leave, and I think after that it goes on to Ghost Sager. Wait,
No, no,
no,
the
no,
Gokaijers get wiped out, but I know what you're talking about. You're talking about before Ghost Sager. Um,
yeah,
uh, God, some of the villains were attacked. Yeah, yeah. Kaito escapes the Die Shocker ship, and it turns out they were followed, and the Gokai, Joe and Don were ended up having to fight them off, and Hina's like, "Wait, we should help them," and boy, they just it just gets a little awkward from there. Freaking Joe's like, if the Super Sentai guys, they were thinking about maybe Marvelous's rise, like, if if the Super Sentais must survive, then we have to eliminate the riders, starting with you. He was just acting like a real dick towards Kaido and basically swinging his sword at him until he gets a good kill shot on him.
they were really mad because their boyfriends weren't paying attention to them anymore.
Yeah, because of that. Oh, so some scenes here and there after Ghost Sager gets eliminated. Then the plot just gets unnecessarily twisted, convoluted. Um, they said that they had to find the original Go Ranger, the Red Aka Red. Um, so they take the Kamen Rider Deno ship to 1974. They meet Aka Red. They get sent to the present time. A couple extra Super Sentai members show up. Then Kamen Rider 1 and a bunch of Kamen Riders show up, and then they just fight for no reason because they can't coexist with each other. And they're all like, "Wait, why are you doing this? Because I'm not really Go Red, and I'm not really the first Kamen Rider." It turns out they were just freaking Gokai Red and Kamen Rider Decade in disguise.
Like that opens up a bunch of stuff. Like it makes sense why Decade might be. Well, the Decade never had to travel back in time,
No.
so, so they traveled back in time to meet the original Red, just to figure out that it was Marvelous the entire time.
So
So Marvelous went in the past, knowing that they would look for him because he told them to look for him, and he got dragged back to start this whole convoluted plan of having them all show up and tag each other.
So after that, Joe gets pissed off, violently attacks Gokai Red, and he's like, "I thought we were friends." And he was like, "I was never friends with you. I never thought you guys were friends." And at that point, it was like, bullshit. I remember that one episode where Bosco kidnapped your allies. You were pretty pissed off back then. I think you considered them as friends. And Deanne gets into the fray, and they both ended up getting eliminated. And it turns out, oh, I didn't see this coming. The villains were working together to have both of them eliminated. So they tricked Gokai Red and Decade into thinking that Riders and Sentais cannot coexist with each other, so they can have them eliminate each other, so all the villains can work together to create some sort of big super mega fortress ship and and just rain terror on everyone. Haha! Oh my God! The villains being not trustworthy? What a twist! Sarcasm. But wait, there's another twist. It turns out Gokai Red and Kamen Rider Decade knew their plan the whole time, so they pretended to kill everyone off. But what they really did was to send them into some interdimensional purgatory rift until the time was right.
Which they never explained how that worked either, but I guess it would have been too convenient.
No, so everyone comes out, every ranger, every Kamen Rider, everyone transforms. Big fight scene with almost all the major villains of Super Sentai and Kamen Rider versus all the Rangers. And honestly, I enjoyed it, but only because apparently you said this fight was shown in the trailer in its entirety.
Like, that's what people say. Like, I remember a couple of the trailers, and they did show a lot of these fight sequences. What they tried, it was pretty much trying to make people think that the Kamen Riders were fighting the Sentai the entire time by taking that fight sequence and, like, cutting it up into thinking they were. It was. I don't even know how to explain it, really.
Well, I've only seen like one trailer and a few advertisement posters, but so I don't think this fight sequence was ruined for me. Like I said, I kind of enjoyed it. It was a bit chaotic and frantic, but what do you expect? There's like 500 people fighting each other. Some of them are in goofy monster costumes, but you got to see some really cool fights. You still got to see like a quick battle between Shadow Moon and Kamen Rider Black, and this and that. And then all of a sudden, Kamen Rider the End takes the two fragments of the ship. Oh, I forgot to mention the villains. They were about to combine their ships together to make that super big spaceship using the little medallions they have. And for some reason, Kaito, who's basically, he's not even a villain, he's a freaking anti hero. He, for some reason, decided to do it himself and control the ship. Because
His his lover did not notice him.
I think, I don't know, we're joking about the about them being gay, but it did kind of look a little bromantic at times. That's what we're pointing out, that they weren't really gay, but seriously, he's like, oh, in order to like deceive your enemies, you gotta deceive your friends. He had some sort of monologue.
He's mostly just mad because his senpai didn't notice.
So he fuses the ships, piloted himself while the Go Buster Megazord, now piloted with Kamen Rider Force because Go Yellow or Yellow Buster um, got knocked out of her ship, so Forze took his place. And Forze's powers actually came real handy in that fight too. And it made more sense on the Megazord. He gave it rocket fists and drill legs, which I thought that was pretty cool. Um Meanwhile,
Not to mention, not to mention the finisher, which before the finisher even happened, that entire fight sequence was just a bunch of smacking around the entire time.
yeah, it was. But there were still some villains that still need to be taken care of, and they did some crazy things like Kamen Rider O's gave the Go Kaiju team their medallions so they can like transform into alternate modes of him. I think, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen O's, but I'm assuming that's his alt modes. They That was pretty cool. And who did they give Ryuki Blade and Decade? They were given cards by some.
That was Ghost Sager.
Yeah, it was Ghost Sager. They gave him the cards, and I don't know what they did with it. They apparently summoned a magic mirror or something. That's all I saw. And then finished the main villain off, who turned out to be Narutaki from Kamen Rider Decade. And the Megazord from Go Busters was able to finish off that big, super awesome mech thingy. And Kaito didn't die, but he was critically injured, and everything's back together. Happy ending. Ah, shit. I should have mentioned that there were going to be spoilers in this movie. It just gave away the entire plot. But then again,
Yeah,
this isn't really really. It's not meant to be a positive review, but then again, it's not meant to be a super negative review either. But
and honestly, you do not go into this movie expecting the darkest ending of all.
true. even though it felt like it was building up to that. But then again, I knew they would turn it around. So there was the cons. The storyline was kind of dumb, as well as the character motivations and whatnot. Action scenes apparently were shown in the trailer in its entirety, or according to what Windsor said. Some of the fight scenes that could be awesome were pretty short. Uh,
Like the best explanation to that would be it's like they took multiple fight scenes and tried cutting them together to make them look like they were one fight scene.
and
Like whenever they were charging in with each other before the whole I'm not really red and I'm not really first Kamen Rider split, they took that and put their running against the running of all the Power Rangers
wow,
and things like that.
okay. And of course, there was some plot twists among plot twists among plot twists that just kind of got annoying in the way. Um, so those are the cons. Now the pros is I did like the third act where everyone got together and did the big dumb fight sequence. I like the fact that even though Forza and Go Busters were supposed to be like advertised as the main characters in the show, they weren't. They were in the back burner for a while up until the very end, which is a pro for me because I only saw one episode of Go Busters, really didn't care for it, and I saw the first episode of Kamen Rider Forza, and I hated that one. So I was okay with that. And I actually did like the villain super big ship or whatever it was called. I thought the design looked really cool.
You mean the Final Fantasy boss?
Yes, it did look like a Final Fantasy boss, but some of the Final Fantasy boss designs were pretty cool. So that's all I have to say. If I do recommend watching this, I don't have a really high recommendation, but I suggest you keep your expectations very low.
And and honestly, going into it like expecting cheesiness, it's not as bad as going in expecting like it's the biggest thing ever, which is what a lot of Sentai and Kamen fans were going into it as. Like this will be the ultimate cinematic masterpiece. It will be the Avengers of Japan.
Yeah, yeah, I could see them expecting that, but don't expect the Avengers of Japan. There's room. You said that they might make a sequel to this.
There's no might. It's already in the works.
Ah, okay. So maybe that one could improve. I mean, Kamen Rider Wizard's going to be in it, but like I said, if there, it's a very, very low recommendation. Go there with careful warning. Um, the last
Mm.
third act. Don't watch the trailers either. If you don't watch the trailers before you watch the movie, you haven't seen the trailers yet. But like I said, just go there with a little warning because if you go there really with some expectations, you will be disappointed. So that's all I gotta say. I think I'm gonna continue watching Kamen Rider Wizard now. Dark Scream 217 signing out, and you want to sign off?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1.
All
Later.
right, see ya.